It's all about you. It's all about you, baby. Here we are, still recording in COVID times. Lucy Harris and I had more interruptions than we needed with phone signals and anything else you can think of. I would always sit with a guest during recording. Mind you, it was quite lucky because Lucy and I could talk for hours, so maybe this was quite a good option for us. Lucy is clear of breast cancer and remains grateful to her Reiki practitioner. I loved how she stated quite clearly to her friends not to be feeling awkward and to go and talk to her. There are so many great twists and turns in Lucy's progress, it is quite astonishing. This podcast is sponsored and supported by 365daysofbreastcancer.com. And welcome Lucy Harris to It's All About You, the podcast.
Hello, hi.
I thought I'd lost you then for a minute.
I was like,
oh,
is that my creep? I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really good, thank you. Yeah,
good.
Nice sunny days and nice breeze, so everything's good. Yeah.
Yes, it's nice to see the sunshine.
We've got you on board for a really, a thing that's close to my heart actually. We'll talk about your background in a second, but we'll just put this straight out there. Really, it's like a breast cancer related conversation. And the reason I was very keen to have you on is it's got more twists and turns and stings to the tail than you can imagine. And I just found that whole experience myself really, you never know quite what's coming at you. And, you know, this whole conversation's that case in point as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
So just fill us in a little bit about your background leading up to your diagnosis and, just tell us how it all kicked off.
Yes, so it was about April 2017 when I actually went for a bit of me time, and I went to see my Reiki practitioner and have a bit of relaxation and trying to start the year in a good place. And she said to me, "Oh, I've got I've got some heat underneath my arm. Have I got any problems or breast cancer in the family?" And I was like, yes, big sister, but no, no other link. So went and got it checked out, and a month later I was diagnosed with triple negative breast cancer. So
wow.
And then obviously went on to have surgery, and then chemotherapy, and then radiotherapy, and finished the treatment by the end of February the following year.
We've spoken already, so I know the story, but I just suddenly thought, I'm sure you can't have had immunotherapy because that's particularly for HER2 positive, which is what I had. And I remember that coming onto the market actually some years ago. It's less than a decade ago, I think. And there was this big furore because they were saying it was a postcode treatment. This is exactly what we're talking about here, because it wasn't suitable for you, was it?
No, well, it's not deemed that it works for this type of cancer, but there are trials going on right now for immunotherapy that I have friends on. So, there are promising things happening for the triple negative, which is very interesting and hopeful. And it
had to happen at some point, didn't it?
Yes, yeah. I mean, tamoxifen didn't come about that long ago. So, there are always things moving forward.
Yes, I don't know about you, Lucy, but, it just seems that treatment is advancing all the time. And when you held your hand out, your arm out, in fact, for chemotherapy that first time, it just feels such an archaic, clunky, wieldy experience. And you kind of sit there thinking this has got to move on at some point.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that, because actually, before you even walk into the hospital, you have the fear of the word chemotherapy.
Yes, you do.
Full stop. From the
Yeah,
horror stories that we've seen in the press, the first primary fear being your hair loss, and
yeah,
actually, really, that shouldn't be your main concern. It should be about you know treating the cancer.
yeah.
So yes, the treatments, thankfully, are moving forward quite fast in some respects, to be kinder to the rest of the body, and just target those specific cancer cells that are there, because at the moment it just wipes out every fast moving cell, growing cell.
Brain cell, yeah.
And that's the way the treatment is aimed at. But now they're doing these targeted therapies, and the immunotherapies. Your own body is supposed to start attacking the
That's right.
random cells. So
But I was expect to explain to me in basic terms that it's like somebody, a little tiny thing, going in there with a key, finding any random cells that aren't working for you and working against you, putting the key in and locking them down and keeping them locked down.
that's a great analogy.
Yeah, that my Macmillan nurse told me that, because I just thought, you're having all the therapies. It's this is
Yeah,
going to be a real thing, but it's
yeah,
horrendous.
yeah,
And so I just wanted a full. Oh, they must have been sick of me on that ward. I asked so many questions. They used to like, oh, here she is.
yeah. But it's the uncertainty, isn't it? And you just
Yeah,
want
and I'm
answers.
curious. I like to know,
Mm,
and that your conversation's a fascinating one, because
mm.
I understand there's over 200 variations on breast cancer, and here's another story. I don't think
Mm.
anybody's got the same tale to tell, have they?
No, definitely nobody has had the exact same treatment, the levels of dose, or where the cancer started, how
Yeah,
it grew, where did it start, how did it start. Nobody knows those answers yet, but
no,
it's very individual to each person, and the
it
way
is. Yeah.
you cope with it too. So
So you were you have a wonderful job. I mean, you were just going along merrily enjoying life before this came about. So tell us a bit more about the job that you do.
yeah, so I was sort of at the prime of my working life, and I am a theatrical costumier. So basically, I run a department called the running wardrobe department at Glyndebourne Festival Opera, which is a seasonal opera house in the middle of the countryside in near Brighton in Lewis, and we perform 6 operas across the summer. And we have some very high standards and high budgets and really huge casts. And yeah, there's world-class opera going on in the middle of the countryside near the South Downs, which is
Yeah,
a bit
fantastic.
unbelievable, really.
Yeah,
But
it's got a massive reputation, and I expect that kept you really at the top of your game and full on.
yeah, so when I'd been there 8 years previous to my diagnosis, and
Mm.
actually had worked there straight out of college, and then for 4 years, and then in another type of job as a costume maker, and being the manager now of the running team. It's slightly different area, but still in the costume department. But
Oh, what's a running team?
so the running team is I manage the shows. So it's what you would stereotypically call the old-fashioned wardrobe mistress or wardrobe
Right.
master. So I run the shows. I make sure everybody's in the right place at the right time, in the right costume, with the designer's look that they wish for. That the quick changes happen effectively, safely. That all staff are present where they're supposed to be. Everything's cleaned, pressed, ironed, or got the look of a character's look rather than an off the peg look.
Mm.
So yes, lots of detail, maintenance, repairing, sewing, quick fixes to trousers when their seams split.
2 minutes
Name it.
before they do on stage, that kind of thing.
Yes,
Yeah,
we have some
yeah,
comedy moments, and we have
yeah,
some very sociable jobs. So it's very
yeah.
active work.
So
Um,
stressful, but you love it.
Stressful because the deadlines are every second of that performance,
Yeah,
but also everybody's got the same aim. The
yes,
actual backstage teams, we're all the live performance. So, which is what we all love,
Yes, that's what you thrive off, right?
yeah, the theatre essence as such.
Yeah.
So, but having sort of got a family of theatrical performers, and mum owns a dance school, are sort of well used to that genre.
Yeah, that environment. Yeah,
Yeah.
you grew up with it.
Yeah.
So breast cancer struck, but you had a family turmoil already going on in the background, didn't you?
Yeah, so I have a big sister, Katie. She's 6 years older than us, and she was diagnosed at the end of 2015. And she eventually she finished her treatment at the May in 2016. So she had quite a fast treatment, but this was in Paris. So she was working at in Paris as a show director. So at Disneyland.
Right.
So yeah, it's quite. It was quite a shock to be diagnosed a year and a half later, from her diagnosis, and when there's no genetic link in the family, and no suspicions of why we should be diagnosed under the age of 50. Every woman over the age of 50 has their screening, and that's how Katie's was picked up. But being just over 40 at the time, it was kind of like not on our radar as such.
No, and your cancers were different. Yeah.
Yes, very different. So Katie had the estrogen receptive cancer, and I had the no estrogen or HER2.
Yeah.
So protein. So yes, very, very different. So we obviously didn't have a genetic link, because as we got tested, and the genetics they test for are the BRCA1 and BRCA2 genes, but there are a lot of other subtype genetics that can be tested for, that there are no sort of preventative measures that you can take. So it's kind of bittersweet whether you want to know or whether you do or don't know about these genetics. But as I say, it wasn't on our radar. So
yeah, and you're a twin. Yeah.
Yes, yeah. So obviously the fear went out that way as well, but that's all been tested and regularly tested now, so we are covered under the screening program.
And so that doesn't mean your twin sister would not get it. Just means, does it mean she will not get it, or will she not get the same type as you've got?
So she's got the average risk as everybody else, because we don't have the BRCA genes. So she's not susceptible as far as the genetics say. So, but as nobody knows kind of what sparks this awful breast cancer, then nobody should feel that they're 100% immune from it. So
no, it's quite incredible. Quite incredible to for your parents too, to have your elder sister going through that and just coming out of treatment before you were plunged into it yourself.
Yes, I think the shock of how can this be happening, and the disbelief, I think, was the strongest thing, and being and looking so healthy. It's not like you had symptoms of malaise. You were really looking good. I mean, it was springtime, everything looks a little bit sunnier. It wasn't, and it was such a surprise.
I think that's the hardest thing. It was the same for me, before I was diagnosed. There was no sign of it whatsoever, and I actually went along to I call it the cancer catcher van, actually, which I should probably stop doing that, but it's the van that comes around locally every February to Marlow, and women of a certain age get invited along to have a test, and thank goodness they did. Thank goodness I went.
Exactly.
In fact,
and that's so good that service is available.
Because I like you, I didn't feel unwell. I felt, just as I always had, that I wasn't tired. I wasn't anything.
No, not at all. And Katie's cancer was caught in Paris because they screen from the age of 40.
Oh, I was going to ask you that, actually, because I know it's 50 over here, and there's only 6 years difference. She said.
Yeah. So she was on a routine screening. And actually, once she got diagnosed, her consultant in Paris said that we should get tested as sisters. And the UK refused, because generally there is good medical evidence as to why you're not screened under 50, but reassurance wise we really needed it. But there are ways and means to get your screening if you are so anxious about it, and there are private mammograms that you can have for good reasons.
Well,
though.
and because otherwise you drive yourself insane worrying about it, and that could be far more damaging in some respects.
Yes, yeah, and we did have some counselling with the genetics breast care place in Sussex, and they said we were actually low risk. So I think it's actually just a 100% bad luck.
Incredible.
So unfortunate.
And that there was that. You had your diagnosis, your treatment, the surgery, the whole everything. But that still wasn't to be the only sting in the tail from it.
No. So, we just sort of come through the other side and finished the chemotherapy and the radiotherapy. And you expect to take a little bit of time to rebuild all your cells after all that harsh treatment. Right. And, I worked all the way through my chemotherapy on and off. So I didn't take a year out or anything. I was sort of in work, for a few days, then off for a few days. And really, Glamborn were fabulous in helping me through that. So I got used to feeling a little bit under par. But 6 months later, after finishing radiotherapy in September 18, I had been on holiday and just flown back from Kos and had a scan called an echocardiogram, because I was a bit breathless and my heart rate was extremely high at a resting pace of 122. And
So your heart rate was 122.
Yes, yeah, literally where it should be at 60, 50, 60. And I had no knowledge of that. That wasn't right. I was feeling okay, but I'd learned to feel sort of okay was good.
Well,
for
there's
me.
so
It
many
wasn't
variations
great.
when you have chemo and radiotherapy in your body. There's so many changes. You kind of have to go along and accept some of them and hope that they improve. I think that's how you get into that kind of mindset, don't you?
Yeah, I didn't feel toxic when I had the chemotherapy. I felt really toxic. But I didn't have that feeling. I just had the absolute fatigue and the breathlessness, and I just understood it to be, recovery. So this scan obviously revealed that my heart was only working at 18%, whereas it should have been working between 60 and 70%. So I got admitted there and then with heart failure. So that was an ultimate shock, because I'd gone along to the scan on my own. And thank goodness my breast care nurse was in the unit. So she picked me up off the floor. I had a wonderful cardiologist who was absolutely fantastic, and the matron of the hospital. And I had to be transferred to another cardiac unit within Brighton. And I, was thrown into this ward and told that, yes, you've got heart failure. It's fine. You'll be able to have some drugs. You'll be able to have this kind of implement of like a pacemaker, or a heart transplant. There's plenty of treatments. I was like, I beg your pardon. So the shock sort of took a few days to sink in.
Sure. And so can I just ask, do you actually know what caused that? Because I know for a fact that immunotherapy, I had echocardiograms all the way through it, can cause it, but you didn't have immunotherapy.
No, so I know when you start chemotherapy, you have like an ECG, which is like a tracing of your heart to show if it's working, all the muscles are working properly. Yeah. And that's all I had, and that was absolutely fine. So it's understood that the chemotherapy that I had, which was EC, it's the, now if I can pronounce this right, epirubicin of the chemotherapy, which is the red drug. That has known in very, very rare cases, and it's something very minus percent. It is so rare that can actually destroy heart cells, and that's what it did to me.
So when you start off with chemo, you know, you go into the room with the consultant before you actually start the treatment, and they
Yes.
reel off this long list that, you know, I like a scroll of things I felt was just
Yes.
unrolling onto the floor of side
Yeah.
effects that can happen to you. You
Yeah.
know, that may or may not have been said to me. I can't remember. But did you pay any attention to that, or is that just one of the things they were talking about?
I don't remember it
No.
being said, but I'm almost certain that it
Yes,
was.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And you know, I did hear the word, you know, you can die from chemotherapy.
That's right. Yeah. But you kind of have
and
to back that
thinking,
away, don't you? Because
yeah,
you're also going to die from breast cancer if you don't deal with it.
yeah. So I knew that I had no choice. Whatever they suggested, I had to do. You know, because I had no knowledge. I wasn't the expert at this. And I wasn't, you know, with the breast cancer diagnosis, I wasn't surprised that I was going to need chemotherapy. So it was a surprise at the actual diagnosis, not the treatment.
Yes, yeah.
So, but you know, you just hand yourself over.
You do,
You just
and
go,
I think, you know, we've spoken in the past, and I kind of think the bit that I hated so much was exactly what we're talking about. The
yeah,
extras that come with it, that you could never,
yeah,
you've no experience, you don't understand what you're setting yourself up for. You know, the
no,
lighter little things of steroids and how they make you feel, and the weight you put on and how you lose it and put it
yeah,
back on again. And you
yeah,
know, that's just one thing. And then injecting yourself in the stomach, or having a PIC
mm,
line put in, and
yeah,
if you have this, it's going to make you feel like this, but it can't be reversed when you stop it. You know, it's all the extras,
yes,
and this is one of them, a massive one for you.
yeah,
I just wonder
yeah.
how you've dealt with that mentally. How have you coped with that? All of it.
Yeah. So, I mean, the actual diagnosis, you obviously you're in shock,
Yeah.
and then you go through to like acceptance, and then you give yourself over to the medics, and then you have to get a plan. When you get a plan, you sort of start to feel, okay, right, this is what we're doing, and I just have to do it. And then you move forward with the uncertainty. But you know, I literally reached out to my friends and family straight away. You know, obviously having a big sister, having been through it, she could tell me what was going to happen
Yes.
and how I was going to feel.
Yeah.
Gave me some top tips,
Yeah.
which I was like, no, I won't need that.
Yeah.
But oh boy, she was right.
Yeah.
And then I also had a best friend from when I was a child that had been through breast cancer, and I rang her and I said, you know, how do you do this? And she said, you know, she said to me, and her words were quite true, once you've got a plan, you'll feel so much better. You just get on with it.
Yeah.
And you know, I did, and I saw that sort of that passage through, and I was like, yeah, I'm there now. Let's just get on with it.
Yeah. And I don't know about
So
you, I kind of felt, well, as a single parent as well, I needed a team around me. Otherwise, I just wasn't going to get through the whole lot on my own. It's enormous.
yeah. So what I did, and actually Big Sister did, and she said she created her army. So she had Katie's army.
Right.
And you know, the support that she got from them was just invaluable, because
Yeah.
she was living abroad with no family around her. She had very, very strong friends from her work colleagues and her general friends in Paris. But I decided that, you know, I was at work and a lot of my close friends work with me. So I told them straight away, but I told them in sort of groups. So I got rid of the awkwardness that was going to come from, I didn't want to try and hide what was going to happen.
No.
There was no way I was going to hide it.
No.
And so I just, you know, I told the special friends very calmly to start with. And then I told more work colleagues, and I told people, you know, don't be awkward, come and talk to me. So, and I created a little ribbon actually that I used to wear, and I would give out to everybody around my workplace. Like, knowing that theatre is such a family orientated business anyway, everybody knows each other's business.
Yeah. Yeah.
So these ribbons, people would wear them, and the mantra was be breast aware, be stress free, and be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
So you know, I did believe that stress had a lot of impact on cancer itself. So, you know, and theatre is a very stressful environment. So I was sort of saying it's okay, you know, it was asking for their empathy, not sympathy. I was asking for their empathy to help me
And
through.
their strength. Their
Yeah,
strength.
And boy, did they have so much strength,
Yeah.
you know, and they were so pleased I'd made that step forward to them rather than them feeling awkward and coming to me.
Well, I think I love that, what you've just said, because so many people don't really know what to do. I always thought when you get a diagnosis, you're immediately flung on the opposite side of the fence to everybody and everything you ever knew.
Yeah.
All of a
Yeah.
sudden, you don't know how to communicate with those people, and they don't know how to communicate back to you. And so when you settle into it, the giving out of roles and telling people how they can help you is so much more beneficial for them when they're just flailing around desperate to help but don't want to put the foot in it, because that's really quite easily done as well.
Absolutely. And you know, I had friends that were nurses, and they said, "Oh, I'll come and do your injections after your chemos," and I was like, "Great." You know, that
Yeah.
I didn't have to worry
Yeah,
about.
lovely.
And I had some fabulous ladies come and help me, you know, and I was staying at my parents' at the time. So it was a lovely little sort of sense of a responsibility that mum and dad didn't have to make,
Yes.
or my sister. So live with my twin sister at the moment. So yeah, so she didn't have to do it either. And I wasn't, you know, sort of, I was too panicky to do injections on myself.
Yeah.
So
It's a horrible experience.
yeah,
It is.
you know, you do have to just do it, but
You
you know, I
do.
was like,
I
let's
actually
reduce
phoned the
this
ward
stress.
up when I first opened it up, because I thought they must have given me the wrong needles here. They were enormous.
Yeah.
And I said, you know, has it got this big grey bit on? Should I pull that off? And what, have you given me the wrong thing? She went, no, that's right, dear. Just stick it in. I thought, oh.
Lovely.
Yeah. Anyway, like you say, I
Yeah.
did the first one and I was okay after that. But it's
Yeah.
not a nice thing. It isn't a nice thing.
No.
It just brings you down a bit. It's
Yeah.
another weight on your shoulders, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, and I used to go out for coffee with my friends when I was going through the chemotherapy, and that meant a lot, just to pop to a coffee shop.
Yes, same for me. Yeah.
And you know, they'd pick us
To
up, we'd
reclaim
go
your
out for a
normal
little.
life a bit. Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they loved being that able to help
Yes.
in that way that they could.
Yeah.
And you know, I had so many well wishes and presents and care packages and all sorts of lovely things.
Yeah.
But you know,
And that helped you get through mentally. So you've had quite
yeah.
a pragmatic approach to this, haven't you?
Yes.
And I think you have
Yeah.
to have, in a way, whilst you're in it. So you got your plan. You knew you were striding forward and you're going to stick to that. And you pulled your people, your group, your army around you
Yes.
to keep you buoyed up and help you through to the other side.
Absolutely.
And that's
you know,
the route through, I think, for most people. I
yeah.
don't think you can do something so immense like this on your own.
No, definitely not on your own. Definitely not. Reach out is my advice.
Yeah.
You know, and being proactive about doing that. Don't feel guilty. You know, I had to set that aside, and I was like, no, I need this.
Yes.
This is about me now. I need this from A, B, and C. So let's ask. And you know, you might not have got everybody that you wanted, you know, you thought would come and help. Not everybody had the capability to deal with it.
And that's fine too, isn't it?
Yeah,
you know, I just think people react in very strange ways, and you just have to be accepting of the fact that we're not all the same, and it is too difficult for some people.
Yeah, you know, I've gone on to have the reconstruction of the breast because I had the mastectomy, and I had the DEP reconstruction, which means they take part of your tummy and make a new breast out of it, which is quite a major operation.
Yeah.
And obviously that got delayed because of the heart failure, so that was a bit of another curveball. But I had to set up a whole new support system for the recovery of that, which was 12 weeks. So I had lots of lovely friends come round and cook dinner and, you know, come and chat, bring cake. And it just meant so much. You know, family would come round too. But, you know, keeping in touch with people and accepting help is very important.
Yeah.
So,
well, I've written something called 365 days of breastcancer.com, and it's about things like this. It's words of inspiration, but practicalities too. And, you know, I remember saying to somebody, just get a cleaner, get someone in to clean the house. And she said, how do you expect me to afford that? Because, of course, your finances take a big hit when you're down in tools. And I said, no, it doesn't have to be a cleaner. You know, your friends will be desperate to get in there and do that for you. So you've just got to make sure that you can look after yourself in all the ways that you need. So what would you say, particularly, Lucy, to others? I mean, not just with breast cancer, a challenging time of any kind is a real mental hit. And I just wondered, what your advice, if you want, or what suggestions you might have for anybody else.
Well, I think being positive is a very good thing to be, but just make sure that you don't feel guilty about not being positive on some days too.
Yeah, some days it's all right to be really down in the dumps. Yeah.
So I think what you said is the word proactive is a better description. So be proactive, take control. And don't let, as my big sister told me, this was her mantra, do not let the cancer define you.
Yeah.
So you control it rather than it controls you. So you may have to give yourself over for a time being, but you still have the choice to get yourself out of bed and go, right, I'm going to tackle this day. But understand that there are days where you say, no, I'm allowing myself what they call a hippo day on the sofa. So, and whatever you need is perfectly acceptable. So accepting what you need, but being positive about it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make a lot of sense. And I think, I had a little saying to myself that I just had to show up for myself every day.
Oh, very good.
So,
yeah.
Some days that could be huge. I could be doing loads of things because I had more energy, or I don't know, you have a lift or whatever it is.
Yes.
Other days it would be everything I could do to get myself up and smart myself up and get on the sofa and I don't know, read a piece of information I needed to do for work or whatever. But every day I just needed to show up with something for myself, just for me, to know that I'd done that. And the gap between doing something tiny and something massive was enormous, know. So some days were just like that.
Yeah, I mean, I started as I sort of progressed through the chemotherapy, and of course, all my work colleagues went off on tour, which I should have been on.
Oh, right.
And I started to then create like a big cake sale for when they came back, that Christmas cake and craft sale. So I started organising that and sat on the sofa and made lots of little different crafty bits using my skills of the sewing.
Yeah,
so
lovely.
I made lots of little badges and tree decorations and just all little hand sewy bits that I could manage.
But something that, again, it's proactive and taking you into a nice direction, isn't it?
Absolutely. So you lose your purpose in life, basically, because your calendar disappears, your diary disappears.
It does. It's ambushed by appointments.
So then I went, right, well, this is mine, nobody's going to touch this bit. So and my creativity came out sitting on the sofa watching Christmas movies.
Lovely. And got you through to the other side, which is incredible, isn't it? So currently we're recording in COVID coronavirus times. Have you been, I'm quite interested in this answer because I've spoken to so many people. Have you been able to use your resilience and what you learnt during your treatment and your downtime to help you through lockdown?
Yeah, well, it's actually quite interesting because as soon as we got the lockdown, I recognised those feelings of, it was almost like a PTSD, of the complete panic about your vulnerability again. And uncertainty. And I started, for a few days was like, oh my goodness, how is this going to affect me? But everybody was feeling these same feelings, and I thought, this is really bizarre. I knew exactly what they were, but other people were experiencing them for the first time. So there was a lot of acknowledgements for what I used to say. I joined the race, the life race, the human race. You suddenly realized your mortality. You suddenly realized what you were in the cycle of being a human being. And the reality hit. So the resilience that you got from having been through that before was beneficial, because I could stop those feelings and go, you come out the other side in a few days, don't worry.
That's right. Well, and you've already stared, it's a bit of a morbid thing to say, but it's true, you have already stared the black hole down. You've already stared it down, and to come at this again in a way is, it's your second time round, and you've been there. You've got the emotions and the kit bag to deal with it.
I certainly felt very vulnerable, especially having that. It was more so the heart failure, with the and getting the virus, whether the heart would cope. But there were so many more people that were also very vulnerable. But the reality of nobody having any immunity to something that it could be devastating,
Yes.
it was hard to see the fear in people's eyes, really.
Oh, I agree. You looked around at
Mm,
various of your friends
mm,
who were falling at the first hurdle, and
mm,
I thought, crikey, it's quite an incredible thing to experience,
yeah.
and there's nothing you can do to help people really. They've got to work their way through it.
No, and it might seem a strange thing to say, but it's probably done us all a little bit of good.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly.
It's a weird thing to say, oh, you came out of cancer with some positives. Well, yes, you do. Your eyes are sort of wider open to what is there right in front of you.
Mm,
And the word carpe diem comes to mind. It's like,
mm,
actually, don't rush through life. Absorb everything you've got right there. So,
mm.
it seems a bit stereotypical to say that, but yeah, actually,
No, but it's
it's
true.
true.
It kind of, I always said it gave me a huge pair of clarity goggles,
Yes.
and long may they remain, because
Yeah.
I don't want to be wasting my time on things anymore. I can kind of cut to the quick,
Yeah.
much easier now, and make decisions that I would probably never have made before.
Yes. Yeah.
It's given me a massive amount. Am I glad I've had it? No, I really am
No.
not, and I don't want it back. And touch wood, that
Yeah.
remains. But
Yeah.
the truth is, I have learnt an absolute colossal amount about myself
Yeah,
through it.
yeah. I mean, I did the classic. What am I going to get for me? What present am I going to get myself? And I'd been wanting a new car for a long time, so I upgraded my car. And I
Yeah,
was like, well,
it felt great while you
yeah,
did
if it's
it.
going to push the
Yeah,
finances, so what? It's like,
yeah, I
but
agree.
and I had some huge kindness come back from that, and the garage that I bought the car from donated some money into the account. So I was like, it
Oh,
was, when you sort of take a stance and take control, amazing things
yeah.
do happen. So
They do, and I hope, coming back to our COVID situation, that we can all learn that, some people won't, they'll just carry on as they were and go firing off,
mm,
and there'll be no looking back, and that's all fine, and
mm,
that's the way they're dealing with it. There'll be a huge amount of us
mm,
that'll look at life in a very different way
mm,
and experience feelings and emotions differently to how they did before,
mm,
and maybe make some big changes because of that, and
yeah.
take control of their lives a bit
I
more.
think it's taken us back a good 50 years in humanity. So the way that the community is reaching out to each other again.
Oh, which is remarkable,
Yeah,
isn't it?
and the generational checking that everybody's okay down your street that's older.
Yeah,
And I hope that that's good, because technology had been moving along so fast in an
we were leaving
unnecessary
people
format.
behind, weren't
Yeah,
we? I
yeah.
agree.
So
I mean, I had to laugh you saying that, because when I was 8 years old, I actually got on one of my school reports, Deborah would do much better if she stopped making sure everybody else was
ah
okay before she got on with her work.
yeah.
Well, as lockdown started, when I had my cancer diagnosis,
Mm,
there was nobody else to care for but look after
yeah.
myself. This was very different. So
Mm, mm,
I've been doing exactly as you said. I've been making sure
yeah.
everybody on my road is
Yeah,
okay.
that's it. And and
Some things never leave you, do
as
they?
as part of my work, I make sure everybody else is all right first, and then I think about myself. But the cancer journey, actually, you had to think about
Reverse
yourself.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
And actually, in a way, that felt nice. I
mm,
don't know about
oh
you.
yes, I was like, right, oh no, this is me now. So
Yeah.
it's I didn't feel guilty about it to start with. And then I went through a bit of a roller coaster, going, oh, am I affecting other people? Should I be careful of
Yeah.
them? And then I stood up and went, actually, no. So
No, I
you know
agree. I agree. I think you become so backed into a corner that you haven't got a space in your
yeah.
head to start worrying about things like that.
Mm,
And actually, my surgery was on the 5th of April, and
mm,
I wanted to mark that day in a more positive way. So I started this
mm.
podcast and called it It's All About You for that
Yes,
reason.
absolutely. And it's just very perfect words for a cancer patient. So
It is, for anybody going through a really chronic illness
yeah,
or a tough time, and that's really what this
yeah,
podcast is about, is to find stepping stones into a better place. And I think, for sure, your conversation today will have given lots of people some help with that, and some routes out into a brighter
yeah. I
area.
hope so, because I reached out and found lots of results of, you know, how people had coped and what they had done. So, and it gives you kind of not a comparison, but oh, this is possible, you know, so I can do this. So it's the affirmation that you need to tell yourself. So
yeah, I think it's once you're given the cancer word or whatever word it is of an illness, once you've absorbed that and acclimatized to it, life becomes easier, because there are people that have recovered from just about everything, and why shouldn't that be you? You know, so you can make your way through from there.
Absolutely, yeah.
So, Lucy, I want to just say a massive thank you, because that was just an enormous thing. And I can tell with your conversation how upbeat you are, and you're not letting it get you down. And I'm sure you have your days and your moments, but you're doing such a terrific job, and that you're able to work in such a great space. It must be brilliant for your soul.
Oh, yes, I feel very lucky.
Yes, absolutely. It's a privilege. But it's also a privilege to have this conversation with you. So I just want to say a massive thank you for everything you've given to the people that will listen to this podcast.
Bless you, thank you. So,
yeah, nice to speak to you.
Yes, take care.
You too. If you like this podcast, like it, comment on it, or share it. Thank you.